This episode of the GameOverGreggy Show is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. Blue Apron's mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone like I do with #CookingWithGreggy. Blue Apron achieves this by supporting a more sustainable food system, setting the highest standards for ingredients, and building a community of home chefs. Want to know about the upcoming meals? You got it, Jack. Cashew chicken stir fry with tango mandarins and jasmine rice, Sicilian cauliflower pizza and fresh mozzarella and oregano, and more. I'm super excited about these foods, Kevin. For less than $10 per person per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Greggy. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. That's blueapron.com/Greggy. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the GameOverGreggy Show. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer/seducer, Nick Scarpino.
Hair is on point today, Greg.
Thank you very much. Yours as well. Here's the things. I like that you're wearing the Beat Cop shirt.
Yeah.
I like you're still rolling the sleeves.
Hell yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about the coconut oil in the coffee.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Because it is
pungent.
overpowering. And I'm like, where are the Mounds bars? Who's eating the Mounds bar? No, it's coconut in the coffee.
But the
Can we
funniest
see
thing
it?
is,
There's a little flex in there.
You might be able to see a little bit of it. Can you? Careful, it's hot. No, you can't really make it out. So you have to be careful with the coconut oil. As a lot of you know, I'm flirting with the ketogenic diet. And one of the things I recommend is getting healthy fats, one being MCT oil. What you can get is you can get these coconut oil packets that you put in your coffee instead of a creamer, so you're not getting dairy. The problem is, in a cup of coffee this big, they give you a packet that's literally the size of a hot sauce container. If you pour the whole thing in, the first inch of your coffee will just be oil. And I almost gagged the other day. This is approximately like a quarter of the container.
Now, I gotta ask too, is this making you poop? Like really, the liquidy poops?
No. Well, I mean, I had a bit of a breakdown last week where starting, I think, Friday, I just went hard on carbs.
Yeah,
Nick hasn't had a solid poop in 32 years.
No,
that's the pure one, Tim Gettys.
That's not the problem. The problem is the poop's too solid when you do only protein. It, like I said before, remember I said it's like pushing peanut butter through a thimble. It's just disgusting. It's like you got to just scrape it out. Just scrape it out.
And this is the Tauntaun master, Colin Moriarty.
The Tauntaun?
Yeah.
Or Tauntaun?
I don't know.
Are you a Tauntaun Wrangler?
Like Tauntaun from Star Wars? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
It's Tauntaun. Tauntaun.
I've heard
You're
about
breaking my brain right now.
Now, for the record, it's the one that he cuts open and sleeps in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The other one is the Wampa, the one that attacks him in the cave.
What's the one he can shoot? What's the one he can shoot from a distance or whatever?
A Womp Rat.
Okay. And what's a metachlorian?
It's a thing that doesn't exist in Star Wars.
They haven't blinked it out of existence yet. God damn
They had
it.
an opportunity. They didn't.
If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is the GameOverGreggy Show. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table, each bringing a random topic of discussion for your... I'm broken, guys.
Dude, this week's
fucked me up,
Just
and I
get into
hate
it.
everything. I hate everything.
It's okay.
I hate
It's
it
okay.
all. Go to Patreon or don't. What? What, Kevin? Yeah, it's really almost over for everybody.
After this, I get to go edit my 4,400 word. Colin was right.
I get to record a show we already recorded once, and then I get on a fucking 60-hour flight.
We've said this on the morning show, and you'll hear it on the Gamescast, but for the first time ever, Kind of Funny, we recorded an entire episode of the Gamescast, and then the audio corrupted.
It's terrible.
So it's unusable. And it was one with Pete Hines, a very
It was a
special
great.
guest.
I must
Such
say,
a good episode.
I have to say, Greg
Awesome
will do
episode.
his best in the interview. I'm sure it won't be nearly as good as the episode that we had.
The episode was great. We were all firing on all cylinders.
It
Great.
was a fantastic and fascinating conversation that you will literally never see.
But we're trying to make it up. So
Well,
Greg's doing a one-on-one. I feel
you
really
can
good
see
about
it. You just can't hear it.
You can look at it.
Yeah, you could look at the whole thing.
I was thinking we could do that. We could play the footage, and then me and Pete talk about what we think we were talking about at this point.
I'm also happy to just dub over the entire episode with what I think you guys are talking about.
2 hours of Nick being like, I don't know. Deus Ex? No, Nick, that's what you play.
Halo, Mario.
This table. My topic is how long will Donald Trump be president? Last week on the Game Over Greggy show, we did the topic where, hey, let's go through his policies. He just got elected and see what we agree with and what we don't agree with. And we recorded that on Tuesday. And then by the end of the week, everything was on fire. And the immigration thing had happened, the executive order, people were freaking out. And then it's like every day you wake up and look at the news and something else crazy has fucking happened. And people are getting fired. Sean Spicer saying all sorts of crazy shit. Tweeting his passwords, maybe. Nobody knows what's happening. You got Bannon over there. People calling him president. It's just like, Jesus fucking Christ, what the hell is happening anymore? And so it's literally, it's funny because Colin wanted to do the topic about the policies, like so that it would have gone live on Patreon the day it got inaugurated, and then it would have rolled out through the week. I wanted to do this topic of how long will he be president? And I think all of them, we were hot on the trigger finger for each one of them because he could be, I can see him being president for 8 full years. I can see him not being president by the time this posts. I don't know what's going on.
I can see him being president for 3 terms because he doesn't fucking care about rules. He can just do whatever the shit he wants.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like this, it's so interesting to see over the last couple of years how this all came to be, and now we are dealing with it. And I honestly, with as upset as everyone is about things, it's like who didn't see this type of thing coming? Like, I think that this is what people voted for. So as upset as we all are, that again, our political leanings, that's just that showing. And it's the same, the echo chamber that everyone always was talking about. It's just a slightly bigger echo chamber now because some of these things are, even the people that voted for him don't agree with and whatever. So yeah, you're still dealing with that. But at the end of the day, like, this is a thing that is happening and it's happening. People, this is our president. The president of America is causing these things to happen, and the media can say whatever they want, and we can say whatever we want. Anyone on Twitter and Facebook can say whatever they want. This is happening. It's fucking happening.
We're locked in.
Yeah.
We're on the roller coaster. The things come down and locked.
So
we got our chance to get off.
I don't know. I mean,
how long do you think he'll be president?
I honestly think that it's going to take someone trying to kill him to stop him from being president.
I think 8 years.
You think 8 years?
Yeah, I think at least 4 or 8 years.
Yeah.
I think that what you're seeing right now is him making good on all the quote unquote promises that he had. As far as the Muslim ban, I mean, there's already courts overturning that. I don't necessarily think that that's something that's going to be an ongoing policy, and Colin could probably speak a little more to this, but I'm assuming when the Supreme Court gets involved that it's not going to be, it's not going to fly for very much longer. What I think he's really doing is I think he's smartly just absolutely pandering to his base. He's all those people that got elected. He's saying, look, I'm doing all these things that you want me to do. Whether or not they're lasting, I don't think he cares. I don't think there's anything.
Well, it just strengthens the resolve.
Yeah, it's hey, I remember all those things I said. I actually went and did those. It doesn't matter if they actually lasted a very long time. It was really a matter if the wall does what it's supposed to do. As long as they start building the wall, that's all they really need. But I don't see. And it's very difficult to judge this because, like Tim was saying, we are caught in our liberal echo chamber, which is on Twitter, right? We've chosen to follow people who believe what we believe. And so oftentimes you have to be very careful and not think, hey, everyone in the world believes this. How come this is happening? When in reality, it's just all of our friends in video games journalism that tend to skew very liberal, who are saying these are outrageous. Whether or not they're right is a different story. I happen to agree with a lot of what people are saying as far as the liberal slant. I don't agree with the ban. I think it's completely and totally unconstitutional and completely un-American. But there are a lot of people out there who either A, think it's a great thing, or B, and this is the more disconcerting thing, is they don't give a fuck. They don't care.
Affect them.
There's a lot of people out there that are just like, Trump's our new president, go about my day. And I was looking it up before this, but I couldn't find it. Someone on Twitter made a really good comment where they were saying, it's not about trying to change the Trump supporters' minds anymore. That's gone. Those people are now solidified and being Trump followers for the rest of their lives. Now it's about getting those people who don't give a shit to actually care. And that's why I'm glad we're talking about this. And that's why I'm glad that there are celebrities out there that are saying, this is un-American, and people are actually having the balls to go out there to airports and protest, because that's what people need to see. And we need to see that every day until, those people in that other, percentile of America gets out there and votes in the midterm or in the mid.
I think it's cool to see even companies take stands as companies like Ted Price coming out with Insomniac.
Yeah.
That's such a bold move, and I think it's a very powerful step that it's not a publicity stunt. I think that it's really easy to kind of get caught up in all of this stuff when you hit a certain level of celebrity. Like it becomes headlines whether or not someone was at this march or that march or whatever, and it's like we start getting into the celebritization of it all, where it's just kind of like fetishizing it, you know? And it's getting further and further away from what the actual like issues are. And I think that for Insomniac, it's a really awesome thing that they came out with this stance. And
So
they didn't
I
just
missed
be like,
this. Can you tell me what Ted Price said? I didn't see that quote.
I mean, essentially, it was like, we stand.
We stand for- okay,
against
gotcha.
He put up a video with the whole studio behind him in North Carolina, like Skyping in or whatever.
Got it.
being
Okay.
like, we are made up of immigrants. We are made up of people from different backgrounds and whatever, and like we stand against this shit and whatever. And it's like that's powerful when it's easy to not do something, you know, and it's hard
Hashtag
to do
delete your
something.
Uber.
Like, well, all of that, you know, it's like it's a messed up situation we're in.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big question is though, how much of this is just this first few weeks of like, let's get through all those promises versus how much of this is, to me, is going to be enduring policy. I don't have the information to even come close to starting to begin to understand that. But it does seem scarier than it was when, say, like Bush took over, right? Or and what's crazy about that is you look at the things that Bush did. Let's take the immigrant ban for a second, right? You look at the countries that everyone I'm sure saw the chart that came out that said all 7 of the countries that people are banned from coming aren't countries that Trump does business in. But then Saudi Arabia, UAE, all these other companies that he does have hotels or something, countries, excuse me, that he has hotels in, aren't banned, right? Even though they are predominant, there is evidence that terrorism has come from those countries.
Well, sure, like 9/11.
Exactly. And so that's insidious, right? And that makes you scared, and that makes you think, well, maybe we do need to see this guy's tax returns because maybe there's some outrageous shit happening there. And then you think back to the days before social media when we decided to start a war in Iraq to go get weapons of mass destruction that weren't there. And then, but I don't remember people being that outraged about that back then. And then, George W. Bush just keeps on going being president. So I don't know how much of this is going to be shocking and then settle, and then we're just status quo for the next 4 years versus how much of this, to Trump's credit, what this has done is it has highly politicalized a lot of people that otherwise I don't think would be paying attention right now. And it's not a good thing, but at least I still care. And I can't remember the last time a president got elected where I was still talking about them even a week after they got elected, right? Even Obama was like, cool, we got Obama, great. Let's all just go back to work. Everything's going to be okay. We trust this guy. But at least with Trump, you're like, I don't trust this guy. I think he might steal my wallet. So you're just constantly looking behind you. You're constantly looking over your shoulder.
Colin, how long is he going to be president?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I agree with Nick that the ceiling is 8 years. It's important to note, I think, and Tim was saying this, and I think it's an important point and a good point to start is Rasmussen, which is a right-leaning but a respected pollster, released a poll about the immigration ban. 57% of Americans agree with it. Only 35% of Americans don't. So while I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong, this goes to speak to the fact that even with all of the bad shit that's in this bill, because I think some of the
I read a couple other polls that backed that up as well. It wasn't quite that much majority, but it was 48 to I think 32 or something like that.
Right, like what shows in both the Rasmussen and the polls you're citing that there's a huge swath of people, like you were saying, that are disaffected or just don't know or don't care, and that there's reasons for that. We can talk about that, but what I'm saying is that right or wrong, there's some stuff in the executive order I'm fine with.
We talked about that last week, right?
Well, no,
the executive order hadn't happened yet.
Okay, sorry.
But there is a loss of nuance when you talk about anything with Donald Trump, when you talk about anything with politics now, which is I'm trying to reclaim that ground as best as I can with the things that I write and the way I tweet and the way I talk about politics. For instance, last week's episode, when we talked about about
Trump
and all the policies, all that, all you have to do is read the comments. I read the comments this morning. I watched that episode again. I usually watch the political episodes again just to be like, how do I come off? What is said? What is interesting and salient here? And it was a totally reasonable conversation. If you read the comments, you would think that we were talking about terrible things and saying terrible things, but we weren't.
The tweets we got were akin to us saying we're overthrowing the government. Because I woke up and I looked at my Twitter feed and there were so many people like, just another liberal, blah, blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they weren't watching the content. It was just the fact that we had a Trump thing. And I think I said it's going to be a long 4 years, which for me.
I think I said that.
Well, yeah. But I mean, you tweet in our voice, obviously. But I mean, the idea of it being is it's not going to be a long 4 years just because of him. It's a long 4 years because of this response we're getting and the way people are talking to
Absolutely.
each other.
But I think on top of that, the response is illustrative of the fact that like we can't have conversations. We can't find middle ground. We can't anything Donald Trump does is bad. Everything Donald Trump does bad, and I just don't agree. So I don't think he's a good man. I don't think he's fit for office. I didn't vote for him in the primary. I didn't vote for him in the general election. I vote for people that I think are capable, and I don't think he's capable. But there he is. And so we could have honest discussions about the good things and the bad things that happen out of this. and the fitness of the people that he puts in the place. I think Sean Spicer, for instance, is just not a good press secretary. I can't imagine he's going to last more than a few more months. You need good press secretaries. There are great press secretaries that have, Robert Gibbs and Dana Perino. There's people that are there for years because they know what the fuck they're doing. This guy has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
So all these kinds of things are important and they're worth talking about. The major thing, and as so many things are going through my mind with this particular thing, what I encourage people to do is to just look at the policies and attack them. And this is what I've been saying for months. Attacking the man's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's still not working, and it won't work. Look at the polling, right? Yeah, he's unpopular with he's underwater in terms of his popularity rating, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, he's still the president. That's not a reason to remove him or a way to remove him. You attack the policies and the things that he does wrong and his fitness, and you get somewhere. So when I see people, calling or making fun of Steve Bannon's appearance, for instance, right? Steve Bannon, kind of disheveled and old and all that kind of. I'm like, well, is this productive? Like, is what he looks like matter? Like, is that something that matters? Or is it what he's doing that matters? Can we get to below the surface level and start talking about the things that actually matter so we can find a solution? And the solution might be as extreme as to impeach him, and the solution might be as extreme as to find him new people, or the solution might be that it's the status quo. I don't know. But the solution isn't all of this. Everything's bad, everything's terrible, always and all the time. It's just not the case. And only people in extreme echo chambers on the coast could possibly believe that that's true. That said, the immigration executive order is a bumbling mess. And my major problem with it, and I wrote a piece on Facebook about it, is my major problem is there are certain things you can't do, right? And there are certain lines that I will confront you immediately on this, and Donald Trump deserves to be confronted on this, and the anger about this is well established. People with green cards are de facto American citizens with constitutional rights. When they're in the country, they're here. They have a legal right to be here. They've been here for a long time, and getting a green card isn't easy. So they've been vetted.
Exactly.
Leave them alone. If you have a work visa or a visitation or vacation visa or just a long stay visa, you are legally allowed in the United States. Leave them alone. You know what I mean?
Right.
These are the kinds of things. I understand Sean Spicer's up there being like 350,000 people came into the United States that day and only 110 were detained. And I'm like, Sean, that's 110 too many. That's not the way the system works. If you had bothered to talk to state and to Homeland Security and to the Department of Defense and to all the people and the TSA, all that, then this wouldn't have happened. But you guys rushed this through because you don't know what you're doing because it's amateur hour. And that was one of the things that David Brooks wrote about in the Washington Post and actually New York Times, where he's like, it's amateur. What they're doing is amateur. It's not good or bad or indifferent. They just don't know what the fuck they're doing. But you need someone there that knows what he's doing.
Now, did you read this other article, though, this think piece, that the fact of that this guy was raising the flag of concern, I don't remember who it was anymore, that these were all just salvos to see what they can get away with. It's similar to them testing a force field or the electric fence in Jurassic Park of like, what's going to happen and what's going to go on.
Jesus Christ. Are we the kids?
I personally do not give the Trump administration enough credit to be able to plan like that, and even in a nefarious way. I just don't. Like people, because I even on Grantland, or not Grantland, The Ringer now, there's this piece about saying like, have your passport ready if you're blah blah blah. You have 6 months to get out of here because it's gonna get crazy. And I'm like, I just don't know if I believe that. Like, and this is what I'm trying to say is that there's a huge swath of people. You're talking about the people that are Trump supporters. You're talking about the people that are hardcore liberal or socialists, whatever, that don't want anything to do with Trump. In the middle are most of us.
Yeah.
And if you talk to any reasonable person, you're going to find that they probably agree with some of the things Trump does. And that was the point I was trying to make when people were up my ass. It's like, the fact of the matter is, whether you want to believe it or not, Bernie Sanders' take on unions and on trade agreements is identical to Donald Trump's. You know, I'm not saying his socialist taxation plan or his nanny state shit is the same, but on that particular thing, they agree. These far left and far right people agree and find agreement. And so I think we have to look at this executive order and say, like, this is wrong, this is unconstitutional, but there are parts of it that are reasonable. If you want to have a 90-day stay on immigrants from these 7 countries because you have some actionable intelligence or something, you think that that's the time you need, I think we can have that conversation. My question is, why isn't Congress doing it? And not that they necessarily have to because the executive order is law, but why isn't Congress doing it? And why are we in such a rush? Can we have a discussion? Can we figure out why some countries are included, why some countries aren't included? But I also look at it and I say, everyone's like, look at all these places Donald Trump has business in. And I'm like, guys, it's not that easy. I don't think there's a conspiracy everywhere you look. The reason Saudi Arabia isn't on the list is because Saudi Arabia will shut the fucking oil spigot off.
Yeah.
That's why they're not on the list. I don't understand like how it's not, so yeah, all of the hijackers on 9/11 were Saudi. We all know that. We can't fuck with them because they will make massive oil problems for us that will drive like the 70s will drive.
Right, and
so it's just more
this is why I think this
complicated
is just
than
pure
nonsense.
optics, right? Obviously, they rushed into this. Obviously, they just decided to do this as sort of a statement of saying like, "This is our power. This is what we can do." And you're right; they are testing the fences, right? And the sad thing is, no one's stopping them. Like people can protest all they want, but the problem is, whatever up until this point, whatever means we've used to stop this level of behavior from the highest office in the world hasn't worked. So then the question becomes, what tactic can one use to actually get across the point that this is an unacceptable thing?
I mean,
Like,
that's
what
not
power do we
100%
have?
true, though, right? ACLU filed all these lawsuits, got to change. I mean, there's still this argument on the ground of who's ordered to listen to in certain places and all these different things. But I think even there, they're winning the war
Sure,
in terms of let 'em
until
out.
the next thing happens.
Of
right?
course, yeah.
Until tomorrow when he decides the wall's going up, and then that's the next thing everyone's focusing on, and then we never follow up with those lawsuits. I think that he's incredibly smart, where he's like, I can do all these things, and he understands that the press can only and the people can only focus on one thing at a time, and then boom, all of a sudden, the face of America as we know it is just radically changed, and we don't know what's going on.
I mean, I have a problem with his tactics more than anything, right? Like, I don't agree with some of the things he's doing. That like, again, I don't think that you can establish it. You can't target Muslim countries. You can't have a religious test. This is in the Constitution. I understand these people aren't but even aren't necessarily citizens or whatever, and therefore aren't covered constitutionally. But it's about morality, and it's also about what we want to do, how we want to be as a country, and how open we want to be, which I think we should be pretty open and a pretty moral country with high moral standing. And also, I think that it's important that we play by the rules and talk things out and don't rush things through. I don't buy the idea that if you don't want Syrian refugees here, for instance, that's fine. Can we have a conversation about that first, and maybe let Congress talk about it?
But that's the question: who do you have the conversation with?
Well,
right?
Congress is supposed to debate these things instead of, that's why I criticize Bush, I criticize Obama, and I'll criticize Trump for the same thing. I don't like these executive orders. They're not meant to be. They're not meant to be
How is it
signed
possible
like
that he's doing this though? Like, because isn't like why is it possible? And this is legitimately a question. I just don't know how the inner workings of our politics or our government works. But how is it possible that the president can just in one foul swoop do all these things without Congress stepping in with a checks and balance?
It depends on what issue you're specifically talking about, because slowly over time, it's like the idea of the imperial presidency, right? The idea that back in the day, even back in the Gilded Age and stuff, so not that far long ago before World War II, presidents were not only withdrawn, but like intentionally kind of ceded power mostly to Congress. Now they had the bully pulpit and the idea of a voice, and they were important executives that would sign bills and all those kinds of things. But over time, they found loopholes in the Constitution. They found Congress would give them more power, and they found all these things where slowly amassed over many decades is the situation where it's like, well, I can sign this order because of this. I can sign this particular order because you said this in the 70s.
Right.
And this is why, like, I don't believe in a powerful executive in the United States, because this is not the design. For instance, we talk about, if we want to go back to 1860, James Buchanan, who was the president, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong, but he was the president during this when the secession happened, when Lincoln won, Lincoln was about to take over, and the states started to secede before Lincoln even took office, and everyone's like, "What the fuck are you going to do about it?" And he's like, "I don't have the power to do anything about it." His whole thing was like, even in a national catastrophe in which our country's splitting apart, I don't know that I have the constitutional right to do anything, so I'm just going to leave, and that's what he did. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but what I'm saying is that's the mindset of where the executive was, say 150 years ago, as opposed to the way the executive is now, where it's basically a monarchy with some sort of light parliament sprinkling, which I don't think is the way that we're supposed to do things. And I think that's one of the major problems. Let's have a debate. We live in San Francisco. Nancy Pelosi, unfortunately, is our representative. Well, she's supposed to speak for us. So what does she have to say about it on the floor of the Congress? I don't really care what Donald Trump has to say about it,
Right.
And so this is kind of the issue in my mind that we get into, where we've just gotten so far away from the established way we're supposed to have governance that when these things happen very quickly, and they always use the term the first 100 days, it's a very important time in the presidency. He's trying to ram all this stuff through, and I don't know that it's necessarily for nefarious, like how much can I take over in this Reichstag fire kind of situation where I'm going to seize everything like the Nazis. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. What I think the case is that they just don't know. And they don't understand, and there's some fucking stupid people involved in this, and there's also some power-hungry people like Bannon involved in this that clearly are a little more right-wing and a little more populist than maybe we would like. But my major thing, I talked about this in Colin was right, that's going up. We need to figure out a way to talk to each other. And we need to figure out a way to talk about each other and about these issues in an honest way that removes the personal element that makes it so vitriolic and so unproductive.
But don't you think that we are, as a people, when you say we, the American people are talking to each other. Maybe we're not doing it as nicely as humanly possible, but I feel like we're all talking to each other, and there is a debate going on, and there are people who are passionate on both sides. It's just no one at the top seems to be giving a fuck.
I think
no one at the top seems to be listening.
I mean, I think we're exactly where we were when the election happened, where we have two sides that are off and siloed, and there's people in the middle, sure, that haven't made up their mind or still want to be reasonable, whatever. But then there are these people who don't want to listen, who see it as a light switch. Who are, if you supported Trump, if you voted for Trump, don't fucking follow me anymore.
Right.
And it's like, well, it's your prerogative to say that. I get that. But like, for me, I can't imagine saying that because again, I don't agree with you on this one thing, but maybe it's that you don't agree with Trump on this one thing too. And this is the whole thing, like, ACLU stuff happening this weekend, all these, like I was out at the vet with Portillo when the protest started. I was like, oh, I would have gone to this protest, but now I'm locked into this and I have something, this other thing to do and I couldn't get out of.
Portillo strikes again.
He is an embedded Trump agent in my life, constantly stopping me. No, and it was that I'm motivated and angry about this issue and all this stuff, and it was okay. What do I do with this anger? How do I put it into positivity or that I can move forward and help people out and da da da. And so I started reading all these different articles and then Wikipedia and things I didn't understand and trying to piece it all together. I'm like, okay. And then ACLU, all that's happening. I'm like, all right, great. Jump into the ACLU. I look at, maybe I'll just give them money and do that as a thing. I see that's what people are doing. I jump in there. I'm looking through it and it's like, they don't support the death penalty. I'm like, but I still like the death penalty. Like, do I? And then it's like all of a sudden, like on the issue of the one guy's issue, I'm trying to figure out if I can help these people to fight that one issue, but the money I give them is fighting issues it's like, man, this is complicated. No wonder no one fucking does this. But then it's back to Twitter where it is the echo chamber of, fuck this guy, fuck that. Even the protest signs of like that are there were so many great protest signs, but so many that were like way over the top and super like come at me, bro. And I'm like, I understand that you're that angry, but then that's not like
that's useless.
It's back to like the Superman quote I always throw around from Kingdom Come of only the weak succumb to brutality. And once we get to that point, where are we going to go with this? And when it's like, yeah, I tweeted out a thumbnail, or we tweeted out a thumbnail of Donald Trump, and it's going to be a long 4 years. The fact that brings out all these people who want to fucking call me a libtard or this, that, and I'm like, Jesus.
Well, you are a libtard, Greg. I still don't really know what that means. I don't really know what that means. I am a cuck. I watch
Damn, I know
my
what that
wife
means.
get fucked by another man, apparently.
I'll watch that.
That's not very nice. I don't have a wife.
When you do.
And don't talk about my mom anymore.
How did you know?
Because you're very predictable.
predictable.
The thing about it is, I was referencing the comments in the last video. That conversation was perfectly reasonable. What we have now is an unreasonable person in the White House, probably surrounded by unreasonable people, and we have millions of unreasonable people on the internet and around the country that are acting unreasonably, and they're not acting in a rational way. I understand that this is the most disruptive presidency we've seen in at least a century, and I don't deny that. And I don't deny that it's transformative for bad reasons, and it might be transformative for good reasons, or it might be neutral. I don't really know. It's been 2 weeks, right? I just want us to figure out a new way forward. And I don't know how many times I can say this. I'm going to continue to stay in the middle and continue to call both sides out on their bullshit. I hate the extremes on both fucking sides. And I want to be very clear about that. I hate you both, right? I hate the MAGA fucking, assholes on the right that are all about Donald Trump. He can't do anything wrong. He's here. Fuck everyone. Fuck this. Fuck that. And I hate the people on the other side that demean an entire swath of people that refuse to learn how to talk to them as if they're going to rule with 20% of the population behind them. You need to get in the middle and get everyone in the middle. So we're not going to agree on everything. That's okay.
An interesting thing, Colin. Like, do you think that perhaps you are extreme middle, though? Because then it creates a thing where I feel like you are then calling both sides babies, the extreme sides, which means that everybody that even kind of aligns on either side feels attacked by the middle.
Maybe. I think politically I'm aligned more to the right? I am in the middle, but I'm more of a right-wing person. I don't really agree. I said time and time again, I question Trump's fitness. I can't vote for a man like this. I can't, and I didn't.
Sure.
And some people question, like on Twitter, for instance, be like, but you like some of his policies, so why are you against them? I mean, because I don't like the man. I don't believe in the man, and therefore I can't believe in the message. And so is there such a thing as being like, a false equivalency like people claimed with Clinton and Trump? Perhaps. But I am comfortable in the middle space where I see ideas on both sides that I think are totally reasonable and normal. And I do not need to agree with 100% of what a person says to support them. And I don't need to disagree with 0% of what a person, or 100% of what a person feels, to have something in there, for instance, that I might be able to sympathize with or look at them as a person or a rational thing. And Colin was right. I talked about how I am very political. I wear my politics on my sleeve. but I try not to be exclusionary. I might poke fun at someone. I might say this, that, or the other thing. But I would never tell a socialist, for instance, don't listen to Kind of Funny, fuck off, get out of here. I like that you're involved. I like that people on all sides are involved. But can we talk to each other like human beings? And like, or are we just going to divide the country in half and then just pretend that that's normal and we're just going to go on as a republic for 100 more years? No way. Just let's just tear each other apart now and get it over with. And I don't want to see that reality come to fruition. I really do believe, Tim, that most of us are right in the middle and really don't want either side. You know, like people that are saying like, oh, but her emails and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm going to give you a newsflash for the last time. Hillary Clinton fucking sucks. And if that's your best solution to Donald Trump, that's why you lost. You should have put up someone better. And we should have, as Republicans or conservatives, should have put up someone better too. But that was the situation we found ourselves in. Doesn't mean we have to continue to find ourselves here. It's very frustrating. And reading those comments again was frustrating because I'm like, this is an actual pretty metered and normal conversation about policy that was some things people saying that you might not agree with, and you jump down people's throats like that. That's not normal. That's not civil. And that's not the way we solve problems in this country. And if it has to be an us or against mentality, guess what? I don't want to be part of that. I'll stay right in the fucking middle and you guys can fucking kill each other. You know, like I'm not going to be a party to it.
I feel like this is the problem, though, right? Like this is the problem with trying to affect any sort of change in today's society is that you have to do it in 140 characters. And the only way to do that is to basically just say like, okay, I'm going to cut to the heart of whatever my rage is right now and spit that out onto the internet. But it's very, very difficult. Like I've actively been trying to keep up with everything that's going on. And that requires me to actually read numerous stories every day from various news sources, not just the Washington Post or the New York Times. I'm also reading Fox News, I'm reading CNN. I'm seeing everything that's coming out from all sides. And yeah, there's a lot of conflicting information, or at least the information's there, but the perspective and the way the information is given to you is conflicting and definitely skewed depending on which news outlet you're reading. But I think the problem is, and the problem is always going to be, is it's much more gratifying to just get on there and rage at someone than it is to actually educate yourself and try to understand this complex beast that is our political system right now. But that's what we have to continually ask people to do. Is like, you're absolutely right. We need people to just at least understand that there's another perspective out there. You might not agree with it, but at least understand that there is a perspective out there and there is a different way of thinking, and at least then try to come somewhere close to the middle of both those sides if you can. That is what true progress looks like. But the problem is, all the people we follow on Twitter, all the far left liberals that are all my friends, it's starting to become that. While I agree with nearly all of them, it's that horrible echo chamber where it's like, well, they might as well not even be saying anything. Like if I see one more time the joke that we're going to be the bad guys in World War III, like it was funny at first, but this has been 2 weeks of this. I'm like, guys, this is unproductive. What we're doing, this is what got us to this place in the first place, right? We need something else. We need some other means of combating this or some other means of talking to each other that will actually allow for real progress to happen. And it's not going to be on Twitter.
And that's the problem, is that that's hard. And that's where it gets into the weeds on it, right? And the fact of that, what do you do with it? How do you move this? We made a joke or a reference to delete Uber or whatever, and people doing that. And then it's like, well, Lyft is bad too. It's like there's no way to win because that's the easy thing to do. Sure. When in reality, it is educating yourself and not falling down. And the problem we've gotten to is the fact that we are finally reaping what we've sown. In the fact that this has been happening forever, which is why personally I turned off the politics forever ago. That I didn't trust any of them. They all just fucking talk. No, this blah blah blah. I stopped watching TV news because all it was people. Here's a 2-minute argument between two people who aren't going to listen to each other and aren't going to have a conversation. So whatever, blah blah. And then you jump to now where it's like, it's no longer us doing it as the seeds. We've planted this tree now where, help me out. Was it Schumer who was crying the other day? And Trump's like, he came out there with his fake tears and da-da-da. And it's like, we all were like this and we all let everybody get to sides and extremes, and that's who we promoted and that's who we got behind. And now we've gotten the tree that's grown is Donald Trump's presidency, which is him doing what we were all doing, thinking that Obama and Bush, they were above this. They weren't going to do that. You know what I mean? And granted, this is all interesting. You brought up a great point about like, was it this bad before Twitter? Were we this divided? You know what I mean? Before? Probably, because you talked all the time of don't talk about politics at the dinner table and this, that, and the other. But you didn't have a way to put out an opinion and get 100 responses back that are either with you or against you or all over the fucking map. And so it's just a fucking nightmare mess right now.
But I mean, and maybe this is the process, or maybe this is us all learning as a species, as the human race, of saying like, well, we've got these awesome tools at our disposal, but we're clearly not using them to actually to their highest potential, right? Yeah. We've got this thing called Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got all these things. They're not unifying us. All it's allowing us to do is log on for 1 second, scream into it for a second, and shut back down. And so maybe we're just at the infancy stage of that. Had we had that at the beginning, because remember, when did Twitter come about? It wasn't when Obama was first elected. Was Twitter a big
2008 is when it like really started taking off.
So so Obama got elected in 2008, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking like, I don't know what it would have been like if back in 2004, 2002, or, September 11th time we had Twitter and all that would have happened. I don't know what that would have looked like. But I do know that whatever we're doing right now is not working. All it's doing is serving to strengthen this one person at the top that's now has more power than any president in the United States has ever had in the history of our country. And meanwhile, while he's doing whatever the fuck he wants up top, all the rest of us are just crying about it over on this little silo that's called Twitter or over on Facebook. And it's not, I don't feel like it's actually doing anything.
I mean, I would argue that it is. It's better than not doing anything at all. I feel like that stuff is causing the protests. That stuff is causing so many people I know to go out to protest in a way that they would have never done before.
Sure.
But they only are aware of that because people are talking about it on Facebook and Twitter and all of those different social medias.
But are the protests actually doing something?
I mean, okay,
right?
but then what is actually doing something?
Well, that's my question.
The problem. Is like,
but
us sitting here talking about like,
is affecting.
Oh man, I'm so sick of seeing these tweets. It's like, well, that we're literally just doing it never ends. Where it's just constant like putting the focus of, well, you're doing something wrong, you're not doing something right, but we're still not coming up with any solution. And like that's the thing is, I would not even know where to start with coming up with a solution. But I do think that anytime we're talking about it, it's at least getting somewhere because it's causing more people to think about it. Maybe sometime down the line, someone will be like, "Oh, I know what to do," and that will launch something.
Sure.
Until then, I mean, it's just
again, I absolutely think that you're right. I mean, I'm obviously like disregarding a large portion of what's happening socially in our country right now. I just think that. I think that there's just got to be another evolution of that conversation that can actually result in action.